outcome they want to achieve and really know the why behind the what. If they say, here's what I want, and you got to figure out like, hey, why do you want that? And the reason why is because that's going to help you uncover internal conflicts there. And so it's critical that number one, get a clear objective, a clear outcome. And number two, understand why you're getting that outcome, right? And make sure there's no internal conflict. Because if you do this and there's internal conflict, you're just going to help them get more of what they don't want. And they're never going to get any real help, So now that you know what they want, right? You have this clear objective. So let's say the clear objective is I want to get, I don't know, 50 more customers or something. Well, great. So now the next letter here, A, stands for assets. And assets is my fancy way of saying all the moving pieces that they have in their business that could be put to use that could help them get what they want. All right. So that could be like sales funnels, all of their products that they've got, how many lists they have. They have customer lists, they have prospect lists. Do they have audiences on social media, funnels, everything, right? Every imaginable thing that they've got at their disposal to help them get what they want, that's called an asset. So metaphorically, it's like you're just dumping the box of their stuff out on the table and looking at all the stuff that they've got that you could use to assemble this thing that they want. So the next step here stands for numbers. And when I'm telling you numbers, I don't mean we're going to have to like be, calculus experts or anything. I actually failed math in high school. I'll tell you about that soon, actually. But so in this case, the numbers are really basic numbers like, okay, what's the profit in this product? What's the profit for this product? What's the conversion rate for this page? What's the conversion rate for that page? How many leads do you need until you get a sale? Like really simple, basic marketing math stuff. Right? And so you get the numbers, and that really tells you what's actually working in there. And the D stands for deep dive. And it's really a deep dive diagnosis, right? So what you do in this phase is you look at all the numbers and you see exactly what's working, and what you're going to find every single time is that there's usually just like a couple of things that are actually getting them the results they want. And then the other like 92% of it or whatever is stuff that they could just quit messing with, which is great. So once you uncover that, you develop for them a one-step action plan. That's what I call it. So this is literally the one thing they need to do now that moves them closer to this, right? So we know what they want. We run through all that they've got, and we say, okay, do this one thing now to get you closer to this. Now, sometimes the one thing can just lead directly to this, but usually they do the one big thing and then something happens, which is the next step here, which is review and repeat. So they'll do the one thing, it usually works great. Now they're closer to this, and we say, okay, now we're closer. All right, now let's just refocus on our objective here. What do we want? Cool, okay. We know what happened, and then you run through the entire model again. And that's what I ended up doing for all of those clients that were coming to my house. And I didn't have it formalized at first, and then I just started noticing there was a pattern every time, and that's how I developed this model. And dang it, the thing worked. It worked incredibly well. It worked so well that I decided to start doing a lot more of it. And instead of doing it at my house and onesie twosies, I started an entire program and created an entire business from it. And in doing that, I learned the next step, which is the thing that sounded kind of weird, but I'll explain now. And that's step 4 here, which is to be the cheapest high ticket person in the world. So let's talk about high ticket stuff first. I know there are a lot of like courses out there or whatever that say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to sell high ticket stuff. And they'll make these implications that, anything could be turned into a high ticket program, even if you want to teach someone how to juggle cats or whatever. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I do know that in the business consulting world, it's not unusual to be able to charge 5 figures to multiple 5 figures to 6 figures. I've done all of that with success. And so that's really good, but there's a case for wanting to be at a premium price. Number one, obviously you get paid more, and that's good. And number two, because you're paid more, if you choose, you're able to take fewer clients and still meet your revenue targets. And that's good because 3, fewer clients means you can provide better service. which is a very, very important, because if you can provide better service and get them better results, they're going to stay your clients for a long time. I've been running this model now as like I created an entire business around it that does 7 figures a year as one of several businesses I own. And I've been doing this now into my 3rd year. And a lot of our clients are repeat clients, carrying all the way back from the 1st year, which is really, really good. And finally, there's the client psychology of a high ticket purchase. So we have this belief that if I paid a lot for it, it has to be good, and that's okay. And I'm not suggesting you exploit that belief, but there's another side to that, which is I paid a lot for this, I'm going to dang well do it. One of my very first clients in my very first higher ticket program was a lady named Brooke Castillo, a good friend of mine now to this day, very proud of her. We worked together, and she went from $300,000 a year to now she does over 25 million a year, I think. And she's really doing well, and I'm not responsible for all of that growth. She's very, very talented and very intelligent, but I am proud of her and the work that she's done and the work we did together. And I remember talking to her, and she said, when I signed up for this, I said, I'm going to just do whatever the heck he tells me to do because I'm paying a lot of money for it. And you know what? When someone pays you a lot of money for stuff, not every time, but when a client's paying a pretty penny for your advice, they tend to actually do what you tell them to do, especially if you don't overwhelm them. So those are some good reasons that high ticket makes sense. The great thing about this particular business of consulting to smaller businesses in general is that, as a general rule, it's a very high margin, very low overhead business. So I'm going to share some numbers with you. They're my own internal numbers. In sharing these, I'm literally just doing this to kind of tell you how my business works. This is not some sort of implied earnings claim. I have no idea how much money you can make, will make, anything like that. This isn't one of those presentations, and nor am I suggesting how much you should charge. I pulled my prices kind of out of the air. I just made them up. I was like, I don't know, let's try this. And it worked. And that method of coming up with pricing has always worked pretty well for me. So let me dig into this for you. Okay, this is really, really appealing to using this model and just business consulting in general. Generally speaking, business to business consulting is high ticket. It's not unusual at all for a consulting agreement to be 5 figures, multiple 5 figures, or even into the 6-figure range. For me, my main program is something called the Private Client Group. It's a year-long engagement, and I charge $40,000 for it. The majority of what you're paid should be profit. There really shouldn't be a lot of other expense in the business. My meetings, for example, when I meet with clients, they're held in a hotel conference room. Nothing crazy, I'm not going and getting the Ritz or anything like that. Nobody cares. I've done that stuff and nobody cared. The tools that I use have now, because I've been doing it so long, especially, you're looking at them. I literally put these tools on a table and took a picture of them before building this for you. It took forever to get them to fit right in portrait mode, by the way. But that's when I'm meeting with clients, I literally have, I'm kind of weird about it, but that notebook, it's called a Leuchtturm 1917 notebook. It's I think it's called the A5 size. It's the 8.5 by 11 size. Always use a Sharpie pen. And always have a calculator handy, and that's it. Like, those are the tools of the trade for me, So it's really cool in the sense that your margins should be high. Here are my numbers that will happen in 2020. I'm going to have 25 clients this year at 40 grand a pop. I've got around 38 now. I'm cutting it down to 25 because I do not want to have more than 6 total 2-day meetings per year. So the way it works is I'll take clients and I'll put them in little groups and we'll have 2-day meetings together. And if I take more than 25 clients, I'll need to do more of those meetings, and I don't feel like it. So that's why I'm dropping my client load down. But anyway, I've charged 40 grand for a long time, and so I've already got the clients. I'll probably get most of them from renewal. So anyway, it's $1 million, okay? And I will be required to hold 6 2-day meetings over the course of 2020, and I hold them in a nice hotel in Aventura, Florida. It's real nice, and each meeting costs exactly, and I know this because I just had one 2 weeks ago. It costs exactly $5,092.02, and I pay for it after the meeting. So it's not like I lay out all this money before a client pays me or something, you know. And so therefore, the total hard cost for the year there is $30,552.12. So if you deduct that from the $1,000,000, the gross profit is $969,447.88. And so that's gross profit. That's not taking out any advertising expense or whatever. And I have a couple of folks on my team that help me. And of course, I have other businesses too. So my folks on my team work in those other businesses as well. But the point is ridiculously high margins, you know, really, really good. And so that's great. So now that we've got all of this established that higher ticket is okay, it makes sense. It's not weird in this industry. This is like actually something you really can charge a lot of money for, unlike that whole, you know, hey, anyone could be a high ticket, whatever. Like, it's normal in small business consulting. Here's what I mean now by being the cheapest high ticket person in the world. And this is important. All right. So, like I told you, my private client group pays 40 grand a year. Now, remember, the perfect target for using the Sandor model as a business that's doing $1 million or so in annual revenue. So let's just say it's $1 million business, just for like easy math, right? So if you look at what $1 million a year business spends, 40 grand is nothing. Like I went on Google and the average salary of an executive assistant is $57,410 a year. So it's not like this is a huge decision that the prospective client is going to have to think about, you know, forever. It's like, okay, you know, they're not thinking about it for 3 months before they hire the executive assistant. They're like, man, we need someone to help us. Go hire somebody. Like, it's really just not that big of a deal. So like I said, most clients have revenues around $1 million. So actually they're above, but let's just say for easy math, again, you know, that the typical client is doing a minimum of $1 million in sales. Well, assuming that they're only doing $1 million a year, my client would double their investment if all that we did together was increase their revenue by 8%. Right? So think about that for a minute. 8% increase in revenue would double, because 8% of $1 million is 80 grand. That would double what they had invested in me. So they would have gotten 100% return on their money. My target is way higher than 8%, by the way. I would be ashamed if all I did was get someone an 8% increase. So I think it's literally impossible not to do at least that for them, assuming you're dealing with the right clients, right? So like, if you've been doing this stuff before and you're having trouble with your clients, it's probably because you've been working in startup world or much smaller businesses. They're like solopreneur businesses or whatever, and those are great, but they don't have a lot of forward momentum. $1 million a year plus business, they're doing all kinds of stuff, and usually it just takes a couple little tweaks to make them do better, and that's really cool. I'll give you some current client cases to kind of give you an example of some of the stuff that happens. I don't have permission to use their names here, so I'm going to just use initials. I'm sure they wouldn't mind, but literally before I recorded this, I didn't call them, and I don't want to, you know, I respect their privacy. So one of my guys here, this is a realtor, and this person, unlike the example I gave you earlier, he is a real estate broker, and he wanted to get a lot of agents, and he wanted to have a big staff, and he wanted to have a big office. And he hasn't even been with me for a full year yet. He went from recruiting people in a little like rented out hotel conference room to now he just texted me a picture of a great big all glass office, you know, like the cool kind like you see in the clip art and stuff, you know. He just got one of those. He's doubled the size of his team. He's super happy. This is great. All because of the Sandor model, by the way. So it's not like I did 20 million things for him. I was like, hey, this is the one thing to do right here. Go do this. And then he came back. I said, okay, that worked pretty good. Do more of that and then add this. You know, it was a real simple. Another one, this person sells fitness nutritional supplements in a retail environment, right? So he's got brick and mortar stores. So in our work together, he hadn't been with me a full year either. As a matter of fact, we were able to double the retail revenue because we focused on one process. So remember how I told you, like during the assets phase of Sandor, You get like every sales process they've got, and that could be all their lists, all their ad campaigns, like everything, all their products, what's making money and what isn't. We found that one media source got a huge return on investment, and a bunch of other ones really didn't. So what we did is we focused on that one offer from that one media source, and we just doubled down on that, and that doubled everything, just doing that one thing. And as simple as that sounds, the client couldn't see it because he was too busy moving all the spinning plates, right? So in my case, using Sandor, I was able to get super clear for him really, really quickly. Didn't overwhelm him, gave him one thing to do, and he did it. And he's as happy as he could be. Travis is awesome. He is a tax attorney, and he's a pretty cool tax attorney too. And so what we did with him is we were analyzing everything, and we had some revenue targets we wanted to hit. And I'm looking at his business, and I'm like, wait a minute, your clients want this service, and you can provide this service to them and currently do. Why don't we send this message to your existing client base offering this service? Long story short, we did. A bunch of his existing client base said, yes, I want that service. And now he's got a multiple six-figure revenue stream that we just kind of bolted on just by doing that one thing. In addition to that, we were able to use Sandor, because remember, like, you get all the moving parts, and that assets and the end part were the numbers. You see all the moving parts, and you see where the money's being spent and where it's being made. And I was able to uncover that, man, this guy is spending a couple $100,000 a year in advertising that's just not doing anything for him. So I was able to immediately, like within a phone call, chop a multiple six-figure expense just right off of the books. Which, of course, that's just money he's keeping. So that's more profit, which is great. I got another fella named Trevor. He's a documentary filmmaker. He's really, really cool. He came. He's a new client. He came and he had this problem, which was he thought that in order to continually generate revenue, he had to make a new documentary film all the time, because the sales process kind of works like this. It's really cool. Who makes these documentaries? He advertises the documentaries on social media. You opt in to see them. They talk about alternative health stuff. And then for everyone who opts in and watches them, he'll send emails and he'll do webinars selling the physical products, like, physically shipped like stuff, selling them the stuff that's mentioned in the movie. And so he would do it, and like it would work out great, and he'd be like, okay, I guess I got to make another movie. And so I analyzed everything, and I was like, dude, just wait a minute. Why don't you just do another webinar to the list you've got? I swear to God. And he did, and after the first meeting, he did $141,000 in additional sales, which was fantastic, and he didn't have to make another movie, right? And so as simple as that sounds, what I'm trying to share with you is, especially if you've been in marketing for a while, the stuff that you're probably taking for granted. And what I mean by that is it's probably likely that you don't understand how powerful what you already know really is. Most businesses do not know what you know. They don't spend all day like looking at ads and reading marketing stuff. They spend all day putting out fires, right? So what's really simple to me and you is not so simple to them, which is good because it allows us to help them. Here's someone, I literally can't even use his initials because I don't want his competition to know what he's doing and rip him off. But this fella works with gym owners, and we looked at his whole sales process, and he came and he was like, oh man, I need to like rebuild everything. And so I did Sandor, I got the assets, I got the numbers, and I found that, wait a minute, there's just one little thing here. And if we just make that thing work, then everything probably is going to fall in line. And we just fixed that one little thing. And he emailed me, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and said that last month was literally his best month ever, like ever in his life of business, which is fantastic. And we just did one-step action plan, which is great. I have another client. She's new. Her name's Toby. She's awesome. She works in the, it's not home services, like the designer space. And she helps people in that little world. Then we helped to get her a six-figure increase in annualized revenue by, once again, she came, and so many clients do this. Your clients will do the same thing. They'll have like 9 million ideas, and they'll have 9 million problems. And then my job was to go through all that stuff and be like, oh, wait, what happens when you do this one thing? And she would tell me, and it would always work. And I was like, well, why don't you just go and do that one thing again? And she did, and then she did it 2 more times. And next thing you know, now she's got enough extra monthly revenue coming in that it'll realize a 6-figure increase in annual revenue just from that. And of course, I'm going to help her expand that one thing, you know, and that was just from our first meeting. So the reason I'm telling you this is not to like say, hey, you should be in my private client group or whatever. It's just, I want to demonstrate the power of the model itself. You'll notice like all this stuff that I did for these guys, it wasn't that I built them a new marketing system. I didn't rewrite their headlines. I didn't have to create a funnel. When you're dealing with companies that are $1 million plus, you don't have to do that. It's usually there's like a little lever that needs to be tweaked a little bit, and that's the thing that gets good results. So now that you know a model that can actually get massive results for people, now it's time to talk about actually getting those people to get the results for. Okay, so that's step 5, which is getting clients. And the trick here, the rule really, is to make them come to you. If you're having to chase clients right now, I want you to pay close attention, because I never, ever, ever want you to have to do that again for the rest of your life, because it sucks. It's no fun. So here's the rule. There are 2 rules, okay, for your sales process in business consulting. Rule number 1 is that simple is good. Rule number 2 is to refer to rule number 1. All right, we got to keep everything really, really simple. So I'll start by telling you how I deliver the Sandor model, like the various ways I actually do the consulting, and then I'll tell you how I sell it. And take from this what you will. If you want to model some of this, then please go ahead. I hope it works for you. So my number 1 thing is something called my private client group. That's sort of the biggest chunk of revenue. And so what I do is just an annual program. It's $40,000 a year. And they come to 3 small group 2-day meetings per year. And so that's why I'm limiting my client load this year, because if I'm taking on just enough clients so where I just do 6 little meetings every year. That's every other month, and that gives me the rest of the time to just kind of mess around and live my life, you know. And then another way that I deliver this model is I have something called a scaling group. And scaling group's pretty cool. This is a virtual, and so it's an 8-week program. I take groups of 5 entrepreneurs, and they're typically 7-figure plus entrepreneurs, and we get on a Zoom call every Monday for about an hour and a half every week, just once a week, and I run them through Sandor. And basically, says I'm just making sure they're sticking with the one thing, right? And so if they'll just do that one thing for 8 weeks, my goal, and when I'm selling this thing, it's like, hey, my mission with you is to get a 20% revenue increase from your last month, this month, by doing this stuff. Let's go. And it's an 8-week program, and we hit it. I don't think we've ever not hit it, actually. So it's pretty good. Really, really simple, right? So that involves no in-person meetings. I just do that from my computer here in my office over Zoom, and that's really, really good. Then I'll do those little small group one-off meetings. Like I told you, I don't do those much anymore because I bundle them in my private client group. But sometimes I'll be like, hey, you know, if you want to come and have a 2-day meeting and go through this process and do some planning and find the one big thing to shift your business, then you can come, and I'll limit it to usually like 12 people now. And I'll charge for that, and I charge $18,000 for that. I'm just telling you my prices, by the way. I'm not telling you what you should charge. I'm just telling you what I charge for it, just so you'll know. The scaling group thing is $9,800. Every single one of these prices I just pulled out of the air. I was like, I don't know, let's see if this will work, and it worked fine. That's how I come up with pricing. I also do hourly consulting, and by hourly I mean 1 hour. So it's $5,000 for 1 hour, and I don't like to do 2 hours. So that's it. It's like, okay, if you want to meet one-on-one, we will meet for exactly 1 hour, and it's $5,000. And I just take them through Sandor during that 1 hour. And so all of this stuff is just ways that I'm running people through the Sandor process. And so if any of these sound appealing to you, knock them off if you want to. It's fine. I've done all of them. This is my 3rd year of just running Sandor as a thing, and it's great. They all work really, really well. So the difference in which one you should do is personal preference, whichever one you want to do. I do all of them because I kind of feel like switching it up sometimes, So that's how I give it to people. That's how I deliver it. Now let me show you how I sell it. All right. So there's 3 pieces. Number 1 is I release content on social media that is, I call it whale bait. So this is important, by the way. This is like a big one. The term whale bait. I have this expression, and it goes like this. You can't catch whales with minnow bait. And here's what I mean by that. if you're doing any sort of coaching or consulting now, and you're putting out content like webinars or lead magnets or PDFs or anything, and it's like, here's how to create a funnel that makes 10 grand a month or whatever, guess who's going to respond to that? Someone who does not make 10 grand a month. That's not a whale, that's a minnow, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with being a minnow, but a minnow is not going to pay you a lot of money, and they're going to be extremely difficult to get results for because they don't have any forward momentum. Whereas the whale, which is the $1 million plus business, whatever your fee may be, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal in terms of what their budgeting is all about. And because they've already got so much going on, your job isn't to invent new stuff for them to do, is to find the stuff that's already working and just get them to do more of that and help them do it better, right? So all of this stuff is what I call whale bait. And you'll notice it's not fancy. It's me, and so these are shot, by the way, on an iPhone. You can go on Amazon if you like just type in iPhone lavalier mic. They're like $20-something, and basically this thing right here has like a 60-foot long cord that is run down your shirt or however you want to do it across the floor, and then someone's just holding your iPhone and the audio's good. And so like zero production value, and so that's what these content videos are. So I show these, I literally just go on Facebook and say, show these to people in the United States who say they have a small business. And then I just let the rest do its magic, because if someone watches this, chances are they're a whale. And the reason why is because I'm talking about whale stuff here, right? And so I'm not talking about here's how to make an extra 10 grand. I'm talking about like here's how to solve overwhelm and complexity and the stuff that's actually on their minds. So if they watch 25% of any of these videos, what happens is now I show them an ad, and this is a real ad that sent people to my sales process. And it basically says, incidentally, in this, I mentioned the fact that I have a private client group in all of these videos. So they know I've got one. They see this ad and it says, hey, if you're interested in being a private client, go here. And I like to send people to a webinar, because on a webinar, you can actually help them and deliver some value to them, And then at the end of the webinar, I'm like, hey, if you're interested in being a client, fill out this little form and this application. And I get basic data from them. I think it's 5 questions: name, email, phone number, website, annual revenue. And if I approve them, because I won't talk to just anyone, if their annual revenue is 0 and their website is like, I don't know, how to be a psychopath.biz or something, I'm not going to talk to them, right? So I approve them. And if I approve them, I end up having a conversation, and they either buy or they don't. Now, that's the entire sales process. Does it seem super simple? It's because it is super simple, but there's a missing ingredient that I want you to be very, very aware of, which is Sandor. So remember earlier, I kind of had those 3 pillars for you, and I was like, results equals, value, and the value equals money. And if we can demonstrate that we can get people results, then sales are easier. Everything in my sales process is a demonstration of my ability to get them results. And I'm using Sandor. So in this content right here, in this one, I don't know if you can read it because it's probably on like a smaller screen, but it says, what if you focused only on the single most profitable, sustainable, and energizing activity in your business? What I'm doing right here is I'm walking them through the S part of Sandor and the A part, right? And it helps them uncover, oh my gosh, this is what's actually the most profitable thing in my business right here. In this video, I'm teaching them about focusing on where the money actually is. So this is actually part, if we were to diagnose this one and really go deep, this particular video is addressing the end part of the Sandor system, which is where the numbers are. And this whole video is about how my friend Tony Robbins went from doing really well to obnoxiously well by changing one thing, which was the audience he served. I was at his house. I've done some work with him. And I was at his house, and I said, dude, the last time I saw you, you were doing pretty good, but now, good Lord, you got a gigantic plane, and his house is ridiculous. I was like, what changed? And he said, I went after entrepreneurs instead of the general population. I started targeting business owners. So that was the one thing. So that's what this video here is about. So you get it, right? So in this content, I'm not being fancy. I'm not trying to act cool. It's long form. This one's 8 minutes and 31 seconds. I'm literally just using Sandor. I'm just telling them like, hey, here's, you know, how to do stuff. So they see it, and there's no demonstration in the ad. It's literally just, hey, go here. And so now on the webinar, you know what I do on a webinar? And on the